Have you ever told yourself, it's not worth the fight, I'll just let it go? I'm above this? How many times have you held back the words you needed to say, swallowed your responses, or suppressed the anger bubbling inside just to avoid a conflict? Here's something that might sting. Each time you do this, you're betraying yourself. We live in a culture that celebrates superficial peace. From a young age, we're taught that avoiding conflict is a sign of maturity, that silence in the face of discomfort equals politeness, and that choosing silence is somehow superior. But that's a lie. NZ saw this with brutal clarity. He understood that much of the virtue we carry is merely fear disguised as virtue. Fear of confrontation. Fear of losing love or approval. Fear of being seen as difficult, aggressive, or selfish. But here's the truth. As long as you live to please others and avoid conflict, you'll forever be condemned to swallow your own anger. The philosopher called this the slave morality, a set of values created by the powerless, by those who couldn't react. They learn to hide behind a facade of humility and submission. And the worst part, it has become the norm. It's now the model of behavior we're all expected to follow. Today, you may think you're doing the right thing, but in reality, you're allowing yourself to be dominated. Pause for a moment and think. How many injustices have you tolerated just to maintain peace? How many times have you stayed silent when you knew you needed to speak up? How many times have you swallowed offenses, humiliations, and disrespect, all in the name of peace? I'm not saying you should go around fighting everyone. That's not the point. What I'm saying is that you need to reclaim the right to live with dignity. If you don't learn to face conflict, it will eat you alive from the inside. Resentment will build up, and one day you won't be able to take it anymore. Then either you explode in a destructive way, or you sink into apathy, convinced that being good means being harmless. But nature offers a way out, a philosophy that invites you to break free from this cycle of submission. It shows you how conflict, far from being an enemy, can actually be a path to your liberation. In this video, we will dive into nature's ideas about the fear of confrontation. You will understand how this slave morality still shapes your life today, and more importantly, how you can overcome it. Are you ready for some uncomfortable truths? Stay until the end. What you discover here could forever change the way you see the world and yourself. To understand why we fear conflict so much, you must look beyond personal experiences and explore the depths of human moral history. No one has done this more relentlessly than Friedrich Nietzsche. In On the Genealogy of Morals, Nietzsche reveals a brutal truth. The values you carry, the ones you call good, didn't arise from nobility of spirit, but from weakness, resentment, and the need for the powerless to defend themselves against the strong. Imagine a time when strength was law. Noble men, warriors, never apologized for their will to power. They dominated, imposed limits, and sought their affirmation in the world. Their morality was active, assertive. Good was that which reflected strength, courage, greatness, and self-sufficiency. But there were others, the weak, the resentful, unable to win in the game of power, lacking the strength to impose their will. They had no choice but to flip the game. How? By creating a new morality based on the inversion of values. What was once good, strength, pride, courage, came to be seen as bad, as sinful. And what was once weakness, submission, obedience, humility, was elevated to virtue, not out of genuine desire for goodness, but out of necessity. It was an act of survival. Nature calls this the slave morality, a system not created from vibrant life, but from the denial of it. A value system that glorifies retreat, renunciation, passivity, as if they were superior choices when, in fact, they are unconscious defenses against an inability to act. You might think this is something of the past, but it's not. This morality is still very much alive. It shapes the education you received. It's in the phrases you've heard since childhood. Don't respond. Don't argue. Be nice. Don't cause trouble. From a young age, you were conditioned to associate confrontation with evil and submission with virtue. Every time you remain silent, bow your head, or avoid conflict to maintain the appearance of peace, you are being governed by this slave morality. But pay attention. This doesn't mean you're naturally weak or submissive. It means you were taught to believe that standing up for yourself, asserting your will, and setting boundaries were wrong. You were indoctrinated to think that being good meant being harmless. The result is a psychological pattern that traps millions. Fear of confrontation, lack of courage to take a stand, and fear of claiming your own power. You convince yourself that avoiding conflict means maturity, when in fact, it is fear that paralyzes you. The more you run from it, the stronger the slave morality grows within you. But there is another poison in this process. The anger you repress doesn't disappear. It ferments within you and turns into resentment. This resentment undermines your life from the inside out. This resentment is a dangerous cycle. The more you avoid confrontation, the more resentment builds. The more resentment grows, the less courage you have to confront, and eventually, you sink deeper into bitterness and self-pity. What's tragic is that many people get used to this state. They start to define their identity around it. They become voluntary martyrs, proud of their supposed goodness, while in reality, they are prisoners of their own fear. But nature does not believe we are condemned to this fate. There's a way out, a path of profound transformation. And it involves cultivating the will to power, the ability to assert your existence without shame, without guilt, and without fear. This is the subject we will explore in the next part. You'll learn how to reclaim this vital force and break once and for all with the pattern of submission. So far, you've seen how the slave morality and resentment shape the fear of conflict and imprison your life. But nature was not content to simply diagnose the diseases of the soul. He sought paths of overcoming. The key to breaking free from this prison lies in one of his most powerful concepts, the will to power. It's a concept that's been greatly misunderstood throughout history. Some have reduced it to a desire for domination over others, but that's a gross error. When Nietzsche speaks of the will to power, he's referring to something much deeper, the fundamental drive of life itself. Everything that lives wants to expand, assert itself, grow, and surpass its own limits. This is the will to power. It's the impulse that drives the seed to break through the earth, the cub to explore the world, the human to create.
If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support.
Conquer and transcend, but the slave morality tries to suffocate this will. It tells you not to assert your desires. Don't stand out, don't confront, don't be dangerous. It wants you to conform to a small, harmless, controllable space. When you repress your will to power, it doesn't disappear, it corrupts, it turns against you. And then resentment, passivity, and self-pity arise. Recovering your will to power means reconnecting with that vital force you were taught to fear. It means abandoning the illusion that virtue lies in submission. It means accepting that life is conflict and that conscious confrontation is an act of affirmation, not gratuitous violence. But how do you do this? First, by recognizing that the fear of conflict is not a virtue. It's a vice you inherited and need to overcome. Second, by starting to take a stand in small things. Learn to say no. Learn to set boundaries. Reclaim the right to exist fully. Third, by cultivating the courage to face the inevitable conflicts of life with awareness and presence. The will to power is not about oppression. It's about ceasing to be oppressed. It's about living with integrity, with a straight spine, and with a free soul. But nature knew that this transformation doesn't happen overnight. It requires a deep process, an inner rebirth. And to explain this process, he gave us one of the brightest metaphors in philosophy, the metamorphosis of the spirit, from the camel to the lion, and from the lion to the child. This is what we will explore in the next part. You will discover how to stop being the camel that carries the burden of submission to become the lion that conquers freedom. And finally, the child who creates new values. Nature not only revealed to us the hidden poisons of slave morality and resentment, but he also left us a symbolic map for the inner transformation each of us must undergo if we want to break these chains. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche describes the three metamorphoses of the spirit: the camel, the lion, and the child. This is not just any metaphor, it's an existential roadmap, a path to liberation. Let's start with the camel. The camel is the spirit that bears burdens. It bends under the weight of others' expectations, social norms, and moral obligations imposed by a culture that venerates passivity. You must be obedient. You must be humble. You must swallow your anger. You must avoid confrontation. The camel accepts all of this. It is strong in its ability to endure. But this strength is sterile. It's the strength of resignation, not creation. Worse, the camel takes pride in its own suffering. The more it submits, the more it believes it is virtuous. This is the stage where most people live, and maybe you recognize yourself in it, but nature does not leave us there. There comes a moment when the spirit of the camel revolts. It can no longer bear the weight of the lies it carries. It desires freedom. It desires to assert itself. And for that, it needs to become a lion. The lion is the figure of the spirit that learns to say no. No to external impositions. No to slave morality. No to social roles that diminish it. The lion is the embodiment of the awakened will to power. But see, the lion does not seek to destroy for the sake of destruction. Its struggle is for space, its inner territory, where it can exist authentically. To conquer this space, the lion must face the greatest of all dragons, the dragon of thou shalt. This dragon shines with 1,000 scales, and on each scale is written a commandment. Thou shalt be meek. Thou shalt be submissive. Thou shalt avoid conflict. To bring down this dragon requires courage. You will have to face disapproving looks, criticism, rejection. You will have to deal with the guilt that has been internalized in you since childhood. But this is a necessary struggle, because only when you learn to say a genuine and conscious no do you free yourself from the prison of submission. And then comes the final metamorphosis, the child. The child is the reborn spirit, free from the weight of the camel, free from the defensive need of the lion. Now the spirit is creative. It no longer lives by reacting to the world, but by creating it. It creates its own values. It chooses where to submit and where to rebel. It lives lightly, authentically, joyfully. It is at this stage that conflict ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a space for creation. The child no longer seeks to defeat the other. Instead, it seeks to assert itself according to who it truly is. This is the true rebirth that nature proposes. But to get there, you need to go through the fire of confrontation. You need to cross the desert of rejection and doubt. You need to break once and for all with a fear that keeps you chained. And this brings us to an essential question. How do you discover who you truly are, behind all the layers of fear and submission? Nature offers us a powerful answer in Ex Homo, the path to becoming who you are. This is what we will explore in the next part. You'll understand why facing conflict is crucial to discovering your true identity and how this journey can transform every aspect of your life. Now that you've grasped the process of transformation, from camel to lion, from lion to child, it's time to understand what is truly at stake. Nature challenges us with one of the deepest and most provocative ideas in all of his philosophy: becoming who you are. In Ex Homo, he presents this formula both as an invitation and a warning, because becoming who you are is not a natural, spontaneous, automatic process. On the contrary, it is a struggle, and the first battle you need to win is precisely against the fear of conflict. Have you ever stopped to think about how much of your life you live for others? How many times have you chosen a path just to please your parents, your partner, your friends, your boss, even if it wasn't what you truly wanted? How many times have you swallowed your truth to avoid discomfort? Nature shows us that this is the most insidious trap of existence. Most people never become who they truly are. They spend their lives playing roles, wearing masks, adjusting to the expectations of others, trying to be what they think they should be. But there is a brutal price for this false harmony. Every time you suppress your true will, a part of you dies. Every time you avoid an important conflict, your identity dilutes a little more. Every time you say yes when you wanted to say no, you move further away from who you really are. Nature understood that the fear of conflict is not just a behavioral problem, it's an existential obstacle. Conflict is the field where identity is forged. It's in the clash with the world, with others, and with ideas that you discover what you truly value, believe, and desire. Without conflict, there is no self-knowledge. Without self-knowledge, there is no authenticity. Without authenticity, there is no full life, only an empty theatre. Therefore, becoming who you are requires the courage to face the necessary confrontations, saying no to others' expectations, saying no to the roles imposed on you, saying no to your own tendency to adapt for the sake of acceptance. But there's more. Nature reminds us that this path is profoundly individual. There's no ready-made model for who you should become. There's no universal morality that you must follow. You must create your own path, your own values, your own way of living. And that is terrifying, because without the rules of the herd, you are alone. And at first, it hurts. You lose applause. You lose the illusion of security. But in exchange, you gain something infinitely more valuable: the possibility of living with integrity. Each conflict faced with awareness is a step on this path. Each boundary imposed with clarity is an act of affirmation. Each time you speak your truth, even trembling, even with fear, you take a step closer to yourself. Nietzsche does not promise us comfort. He promises us the chance to live as authentic individuals. And that is worth more than any social approval. But for that, you must accept one uncomfortable fact. Silence in the face of injustice, in the face of abuse, in the face of oppression, is not virtue. It is complicity. And that's what we'll discuss in the last part of this video. You will understand why the silence you may have cultivated as a sign of kindness actually feeds everything that oppresses you, and how to break this cycle once and for all. Now that you've made it this far, it's time to face a truth that many prefer to avoid. Your silence has a price, and it's not a small one. How many times have you convinced yourself that staying silent was the wisest choice? That it wasn't worth fighting, that it wouldn't change anything, that it was better to just let it go? How many times have you swallowed humiliation, disrespect, and small or large abuses, all in the name of supposed harmony? But here's the truth. Every time you choose silence in the face of injustice, you are not being neutral. You are reinforcing the very behaviors that oppress you. You are teaching the world that you accept being treated this way. You are allowing patterns of domination, abuse, and disrespect to persist in your life and in society. Nietzsche saw this clearly. He knew that a morality built on fear doesn't lead to peace. It leads to the degeneration of the spirit. When you remain silent to avoid conflict, you do not build a better life. You build a tomb for your will. And don't be fooled. The world notices when you're afraid to assert yourself. Those who act in bad faith take advantage of it. The silence you think protects you actually exposes you. Every unspoken boundary is an invitation for someone to cross it. Every unspoken truth is an opportunity for lies to take hold.